human dawn, the first sparks. The night opens without sound, only the rhythm of air moving across the grasslands. Long before names, before tools, before story itself, small shapes move through the dark. They pause at the edge of the plain, listening. The wind carries the scent of ash, rain, and something wild that does not yet have a word. A group gathers, thin-shouldered, alert, their bodies catching the faint light of a hidden moon. They know the calls of the jackal, the thunder in the distance, the tremor that means danger. But tonight there is something else, a warmth rising from a pit of glowing wood. It is not yet a fire as we know it. It sputters, gasps, flares, then falls. But they stay near it, drawn not by hunger, not by reason, but by instinct. They stretch their hands toward it and feel the first kind of safety humanity ever made. The warmth touches their faces, soft and unsteady. One reaches to place another branch, then another. Sparks rise into the wind like tiny stars escaping the ground. They do not understand the physics of flame. They only feel that in this circle of light the world is less endless. The air shifts, shadows flicker on the stones. Across their eyes passes something new. Not fear, not reflex, but a faint recognition of each other. They begin to notice difference, a hand that trembles less, a face that turns to smile. The moment is small, but it will echo forever. In this fragile light, they begin to learn patience. They wait for the flame to grow, they feed it, they protect it. From that waiting, a slow trust takes root. The trust becomes a habit, and the habit becomes memory. No words exist for gratitude, but the feeling arrives anyway, a warmth shared between bodies that understand nothing, yet share everything. Somewhere in the night, a distant roar rises and fades. No one moves. The circle holds. And so begins the first unwritten agreement. Stay together, or vanish. Time moves differently here. Hours are only shades of dark. The sky bends with its stars, each one watching the new rhythm forming below. The rhythm of shared survival, of breath, answering breath. When one grows tired, another takes the watch. When one stumbles, others steady them. They do not call it compassion, but it is. They do not call it friendship, but it will become that. Each gesture teaches the next. Each heartbeat joins the sound of the others, until the night itself seems to breathe in unison. The grass bends, the air cools, and morning edges over the horizon. The group has survived another unknown span of darkness. They do not celebrate. They simply begin to move again, carrying in their minds the memory of warmth, a memory that will outlive mountains. Over countless seasons, this rhythm repeats. Fire becomes tool, tool becomes shelter, shelter becomes settlement. The first sparks of belonging flicker in the dust. Each night they gather, not only to rest, but to remember. They no longer fear the dark as they once did. The darkness becomes the background to their togetherness. Within it, they tell stories with hands, with eyes, with the slow murmur of sound that will one day evolve into language. When storms sweep across the plain, they bend together, bodies close, guarding the flame. When hunger returns, they share what little they have. And when silence falls, they listen, not for threats, but for each other. That is how the world learned its first lesson, that safety is not found in strength alone, but in closeness. The night drifts toward dawn. The first light of the sun brushes the tall grass, turning each blade into silver. They look toward it, not as worship, not as discovery, but as quiet recognition. Another day will come. They will walk, search, and build again. No one will remember their names, no monuments will mark this moment. Yet everything that follows, every city, every word, every thought of kindness will begin from here. A group of wanderers huddled by a trembling flame, finding in each other the simplest truth, that warmth shared is warmth multiplied. And so the long story of humanity begins, not with a battle, not with a crown, but with a small fire surrounded by silence and the steady sound of breathing in the dark. Fire and trust. The circle grows. The night deepens again, but this time the dark feels softer. They have learned that light can be made. It does not fall from the sky anymore, it lives in their hands. The fire crackles and the circle around it has grown. More faces appear now, some young, some marked by wind and time. They come from nearby paths drawn by the sight of flame glowing against the endless plain. No one speaks, yet no one is turned away. The circle widens, and with it, a new kind of belonging begins. The air moves gently over the glowing coals. Sparks lift upward, carrying tiny pieces of warmth into the night. A few drift out of sight, vanishing into the wind, but others land near the edges of the group, lighting new, small fires where before there was only cold. What started as survival becomes something else. The flame is not only protection, it becomes rhythm, the heartbeat of gathering. Around it, hands move in quiet work, drying hides, carving shapes, cooking roots and grain. The scent of smoke becomes memory. They begin to understand time through the fire. Morning comes when it fades. Night begins when it rises again. Keeping it alive becomes a promise, and promises, even when unspoken, begin to change the mind. If someone leaves and does not return, the circle feels smaller. If someone brings wood, others share what they have. There is no rule, but there is balance. The act of giving begins to define the act of being. They start to watch over one another. When the smallest child reaches too close, a hand pulls them back. When an ember dies, another branch is added. It is not duty, not morality, just the slow understanding that to keep the fire alive, they must also keep each other. In the quiet, a pattern begins to form. The same faces take the same places each night. The older ones stay close to the center, tending the flame. The younger ones drift outward, keeping watch over the dark. Between them, warmth and vigilance weave together like threads in a single cloth. Sometimes storms roll across the land. Rain hisses on the coals, smoke rises thick and heavy. They cover the fire with stones, shelter it until the clouds pass. When the air clears, they breathe life into the embers again, and it glows as if nothing had ever threatened it. That act, the saving of warmth, becomes a ritual older than language. It teaches them patience. It teaches them continuity. It teaches them to begin again. When they move from one place to another, someone carries a small burning branch wrapped in ash. It is their light, their memory, their connection to every night before. Wherever they go, the circle reforms, the rhythm resumes, and the story continues. In that rhythm, trust is born. It has no ceremony, no sound. It grows through repetition. Each night that the flame survives, each morning that they wake to its smoke, the bond strengthens. They begin to hum softly. Not yet song, but something close. The sound fills the space between breaths. It blends with the crackle of the wood, the slow turning of the wind, the faint beat of hands against skin. It is the first music of safety. Sometimes they mark the ground with ash and patterns, circles, lines, the outline of hands, shapes that say, "We were here." They are not meant to last, but the gesture itself becomes memory. And as generations pass, the circles remain. Every group that finds fire finds also the echo of those who came before. The same motions repeat: building, feeding, guarding. Trust becomes inheritance. In that way, the story of light becomes the story of humanity itself. Not bright, not triumphant, but steady. A rhythm passed from hand to hand, from one fading ember to the next. The fire teaches them how to stay, but it also teaches how to move, to carry warmth forward, to build it again wherever they go. Each journey begins with a branch of glowing coal. Each new home begins with its rekindling. They do not yet have language for what they are creating, but it will one day be called family, community, memory, civilization. For now, it is only the quiet circle, the shared warmth, the trust that builds itself each night. And in the deep hours before dawn, when all else fades, only one thing remains: the steady glow of the fire reflected in the eyes of those who have learned that togetherness is stronger than fear. The birth of care. When one falls, all pause. The night is long but gentle. The fire burns quietly, blue at the edges. Around it, people rest. Their breathing is slow. The air smells of ash, grass, and faraway rain. They have walked many days. Their legs are heavy. They have crossed hills, rivers, and endless plains, but tonight they stop. The world is silent, except for the soft sound of fire eating wood. Someone stumbles, their steps grow weak, they fall to the ground, no one speaks. The air stands still. For a moment, nothing happens. Then 2 others kneel beside the fallen one. One touches their shoulder. The other brushes sand from their hair. No words, only care. The group does not move on. They stay. They wait. Not because they must, but because something inside them says, wait. It is the first quiet lesson of care. The first time a journey pauses for someone else. They build a small shelter from branches and grass. They make the fire stronger. They share their food, roots, berries, a few pieces of dried meat. No one eats much. Everyone eats a little. The one who fell lies near the fire. Their breathing is uneven, but steady. Others sit close, keeping watch. Not from duty, from something gentler. Days pass. The sun rises, crosses the sky, fades again. Each day, someone brings water, someone brings food. Someone feeds the fire. When night comes, they sit in a circle. The air is cool. The stars move slowly above them. The group hums softly, a low sound, deep in the chest. It has no words, only rhythm. It sounds like comfort. One evening, the fallen one opens their eyes. They move their hands toward the fire. A few people smile, small, quiet smiles that carry relief without noise. The group has learned something new: to wait, to care, to protect. They rise together at dawn. Their steps are slow but steady. They walk again, side by side, their pace gentle for the weakest among them. This is how compassion begins, not with speech, but with silence. Not from rules, but from memory. They begin to understand that they belong to one another. That to care is to survive. That no one is strong alone. From that time on, care becomes part of the rhythm of life. They share food before hunger grows deep. They help the old and the young. They protect one another from cold and storm. When someone coughs, another brings water. When someone trembles, arms reach to hold them. When someone grows tired, the group slows its pace. They walk as one. The fire burns every night. Around it, new habits form. They take turns watching. They keep the flame alive through rain and wind. To guard the fire is to guard each other. The flame becomes a teacher. It teaches patience. It teaches responsibility. It teaches love, though they do not yet have that word. When storms arrive, they shield the fire with stones. When the rain ends, they blow gently until it glows again. Every time the flame survives, they feel hope. When they move to a new place, they carry an ember wrapped in ash. It is their light, their memory. They protect it carefully. Wherever they go, the same circle forms and the same warmth returns. That warmth holds more than heat. It holds trust. It holds kindness. It holds the shape of who they are becoming. Sometimes they mark the ground with hands dipped in ash. Palm prints, circles, lines. They mean we were here. They mean we cared for one another. The markings fade with wind and rain, but the memory stays. Every new group learns the same rhythm. Every generation adds another layer to the story of care. They begin to live not just for themselves, but for those beside them. They start to see that the fire belongs to everyone, not to one person, not to one night, but to the whole circle. As years pass, they grow gentler. They feed the sick. They share tools. They pass down knowledge in how to build, how to cook, how to keep the fire alive. Elders teach children not only how to survive, but how to stay kind. When the young grow strong, they protect the old. When the old grow weak, the young remember their patience. This is the quiet balance that holds the world together. It has no ceremony, no law, only the steady choice to stay near when someone falls. Each act of care shapes the next. Each small kindness teaches another. In this way, compassion becomes the oldest inheritance. It spreads from one fire to another, from one heart to the next, across centuries. Even now, the rhythm continues. We build our cities, our homes, our stories, but the same circle still glows inside us. Every time we reach out, every time we share, every time we pause for someone else, we return to that first fire. The one that taught us not only how to live, but how to belong. And so the long night moves on. The stars turn slowly above a world that is learning to be gentle. Somewhere in the dark, another fire glows, another circle waits, and the old lesson breathes again. When one falls, all pause. The human contract, the duty of the flame. Night settles once more. The circle is larger now. The fire burns steady, its light touching faces old and new. Smoke climbs into the dark sky, curling and fading. Each person watches the fire. They know it must not go out. If the flame sleeps, the cold will return, and so will the fear. They begin to make turns. One stays awake while others rest. When the first watcher grows tired, another rises to take their place. No one commands this change. It happens naturally, quietly, as if the fire itself had spoken. This is the beginning of duty. The first promise to keep something alive, not for oneself, but for everyone. Each watcher learns the rhythm of flame, the way it breathes, the way it leans when wind moves through camp. They learn to feed it gently, not too much, not too little.
Too much wood, and it roars too high.
Too little, and it fades. Balance becomes the new wisdom. In the silence, the watcher listens. The sounds of night drift in, the sigh of wind, the crack of cooling stones, the far call of unseen creatures. Every sound becomes part of a pattern. The watcher learns that calm can be guarded, that peace can be chosen. When dawn returns, the others wake. The watcher lies down at last. Someone whispers thanks without a word. A look, a nod, a touch on the arm. Trust has formed, small and solid. They move on through the world carrying that trust. When one keeps the fire, all can rest. When one keeps watch, all can dream. That is the trade, the first human contract. Over time, they begin to plan. Wood is gathered before sunset, stones are placed to shape the pit. Children learn to carry sparks from one fire to the next. Nothing is written, yet everyone knows what to do. At dusk, they sit together, backs warm, faces calm. The day fades into orange, then grey, then blue. The glow from the flame paints their skin, gold and quiet. They start to mark time through these acts. Day is for movement. Night is for keeping the fire. Seasons turn and the pattern stays. In this pattern, memory grows. They remember who kept the flame strong, who woke when others slept, who always shared warmth without being asked. These memories become stories. Stories become lessons, and lessons become the shape of their world. Sometimes storms come without warning, rain falls hard, wind scatters sparks. Hands move quickly, covering the coals, shielding the heat. They wait together beneath hides and branches. When the storm ends, they uncover the pit. A faint glow remains. They breathe gently until it returns to life. That moment, breathing warmth back into darkness, becomes sacred in a way beyond words. It teaches them that even when light seems lost, it can be found again if someone stays near. As years pass, every group carries its flame.
When they travel, one person holds a clay bowl with a small coal inside.
They guard it through rain, through wind, through sleep. To lose it would mean to start again from nothing. To keep it means continuity, the thread that ties past to present. The person who carries the ember is chosen with care, not the strongest, not the loudest. The one who listens, the one who stays calm,
the one who can hold warmth without burning.
From this, leadership begins. Not power, but steadiness. Those who protect the flame are trusted with more. They remember who fed it, who tended it, who forgot. The lesson of fire becomes the lesson of community. One night, an old man speaks softly beside the glow. His voice is rough, but his tone is gentle. He says that the flame is like the people. If no one feeds it, it fades. If too many fight over it, it burns too fast. But if each gives a little, it will last forever. The group listens. They nod.
They understand.
And so they keep balance between giving and resting, between silence and sound, between alone and together. Children grow up within this rhythm. They learn that to guard the fire is an honor.
They wait for their turn, proud and quiet.
They learn patience, they learn responsibility, they learn that trust is built not in noise but in time. Sometimes strangers arrive, tired, hungry, lost. The circle opens. A new log is added, warmth spreads again.
The newcomers bring stories of far rivers and wide skies.
They stay for a night, or many. They leave behind their own sparks, their own memories. Each meeting adds a layer to the world, a growing network of fires, circles, and watchful hearts.
From these circles, tribes will one day form.
From those tribes, towns. From those towns, nations. But all of that begins here, with the quiet exchange of duty and trust. The watchers take turns through generations. Their faces change, but the fire looks the same. The smoke still drifts upward, thin and silver against the night. The stars still move above, slow and patient. The lesson never changes. To care for the flame is to care for each other. Each time they add wood, they also add faith. Not in gods or in rulers, but in the simple reliability of human hands. Hands that pass warmth forward. Hands that stay steady through wind and cold. As dawn approaches, the light softens. The watcher on duty feels the world begin to brighten. The others stir. He watches the sun rise, orange behind thin clouds. He knows his watch is ending. He feels the small pride of keeping a promise kept for thousands of nights. The group moves again, smoke fades behind them, but somewhere, deep inside each traveler, a small fire keeps burning, the memory of warmth, the meaning of duty, the quiet knowledge that trust can hold the dark at bay. From fear to faith, the northern nights begin. The world has changed. The small circles of fire have turned into villages, then into towns.
The rhythm of warmth has become the rhythm of walls, roofs, and gates.
People no longer fear the dark as before, but they have learned to fear something else, the disorder of other men. The old wild nights are gone. Now there are borders, banners, and rules. The earth is divided into pieces that people call land, and each piece must be guarded. The idea of safety, once found beside the flame, becomes something greater, the dream of peace across a world that rarely rests. Men gather again, but this time under stone towers, not trees. Their fire burns inside metal lamps, not open pits. Their tools are sharper, their shelters stronger, their hearts still uncertain. They build places of learning, of healing, of gathering, but they also build places of defense.
It is not hate that shapes these walls, but memory, the deep memory of fear.
They remember cold nights and wild storms.
They remember the feeling of standing together, facing the unknown.
Now they face new shadows made by human hands. From this memory of fear, a new kind of unity grows, the brotherhood. Groups of men begin to dedicate their lives to something beyond themselves, to protect, to serve, to organize the fragile light of order. Their fires burn behind stone. Their circles are no longer open to everyone, but they are bound by shared promises. Discipline replaces instinct, training replaces chance, but the core remains the same, to guard what must not fall. They rise early, eat together, work together, rest together. They keep silence at dawn and at dusk. They care for their tools as they once cared for the flame. They learn that strength without calm is dangerous, and calm without purpose fades. In the cold lands of the north, a new brotherhood takes shape.
The snow covers everything.
The wind moves like a living thing, cutting through walls and cloth. The men who live here build with stone, not wood. They know that only discipline can stand against winter. Their halls are simple, wide, and clean. Each morning begins with work, tending horses, mending roofs, preparing food. Then comes the sound of iron, not for harm, but for readiness. They practice balance, not anger. They move in patterns, not chaos. Their training becomes meditation, motion turned into peace. They wear white robes, plain and heavy, to reflect light in the snow.
They carry no gold, no decoration, only small signs to show who they are.
Their goal is not power.
It is structure, a way to live without confusion. They are known simply as the Northern Knights.
They come from many places, many families, but share one path. They call each other brother, not by blood, but by choice. Their rules are few but firm: share the work, protect the weak, hold the line, and remain humble. When storms rise, they move together. When others flee, they hold steady. When food runs short, they divide it equally. Their calm becomes their strength. At night, the fire still burns in the center of their hall. No one sits above it. Everyone faces the same light. They take turns keeping watch. The oldest tradition of humanity. They have not forgotten. The young ones often sit awake long after their watch ends. They listen to the wind around the walls, the faint whistle through the cracks. Sometimes they think about the people beyond the snow, villages, travelers, children. They know their purpose is not glory, but stability, to stand firm so others may rest. The sound of boots on stone fills the mornings. The sound of quiet laughter fills the evenings. They do not speak of bravery, only of balance. Their lives are measured by routine. The same hours, the same gestures, repeated until they become second nature. But inside that repetition, peace grows. Predictability becomes comfort. Order becomes kindness. They begin to keep records, names, seasons, weather, supplies. Their scrolls are dry, their letters even. Yet between those lines lies something deeper. The desire to preserve what once was wild. To turn fear into structure and structure into calm. From afar, they look like soldiers. Up close, they are caretakers of walls, of land, of memory. They tend to the sick, they rebuild after storms. They teach the children of farmers how to read and count. They are not kings, not warriors, but keepers of steadiness. Their days pass in quiet purpose. No songs, no banners, only the sound of fire at night and wind by day. Each man learns to trust the next. Each one knows the weight of his task and the relief of another's hand helping to bear it. Sometimes travelers come through their gates, lost, cold, exhausted. The brothers give them food, water, and shelter. They do not ask where they are from. They do not ask what they believe. They only offer a place near the fire and a blanket to rest. Those travelers will remember.
They will tell others that far in the frozen north, there is a place where the world feels safe for a night.
And slowly, from those stories, the legend of the Northern Knights begins to spread. Not a legend of battle or conquest, but of quiet order.
Of men who live by patience.
Of warmth kept alive against the long winter.
And so, from the ancient circles of light by the plains to the great halls of snow and stone, humanity's old rhythm continues. The same promise made beside the first fire still holds. Keep the flame, protect the warmth, stay near the others. What once was instinct is now duty. What once was fear has become balance. The long night of the world has found its watchers.
The Northern Crusade, stone, snow, and order.
The wind never truly sleeps in the north.
It moves between the trees like a voice too old to remember words. It bends the pine trunks and smooths the dunes of snow. It travels across the open plains, reshaping paths, covering the tracks of men and animals alike. Every morning the land looks new, blank, pale, patient. The world here forgets quickly. But within that forgetting, people have learned to build things that last. The brothers of the North keep to their rhythm. Each dawn they rise in silence. They tend to their horses, their tools, their walls. They polish the same stones that their fathers once laid, stones worn smooth by centuries of hands. Every sound in the fortress, the ring of iron, the scrape of snow, the thud of boots on frozen earth, has its place and its moment. The pattern never changes, and that is what keeps them calm.
The walls are high, built of red brick and pale limestone.
In winter, they glow faintly against the grey sky, like embers under frost. Inside, the air is still. Smoke rises through narrow holes in the ceiling, curling into long trails that mark the passing of years. Black stains climb the stone like writing, the written language of smoke and patience.
Each hall has its fire,
Each fire its keeper, each keeper his turn. The old promise continues, though no one speaks of it now. It lives in the small acts, the hand passing wood, the nod before rest, the silence that settles when the last spark is fed. From their strongholds, the brothers travel outward. They move not to conquer, but to build. They raise outposts along rivers and forests, carving narrow roads through pine and ice. Where they go, order follows, measured, deliberate, almost gentle. Villages grow around their stations. Farmers bring grain. Craftsmen trade tools for warmth and safety. Children learn to count by watching the bells that mark the hours of work and rest. Women gather water from wells the brothers have built, their breath turning white in the cold. Everywhere, the rhythm of the brotherhood spreads. The rhythm of stillness, repetition, and control. At first, they think of themselves as protectors, guardians of peace in a land of endless winter. But over time, peace becomes structure, and structure becomes rule. Walls rise higher. Rules grow thicker. Maps stretch wider. What was meant to hold chaos away begins to hold people in. They build fortresses so large that travelers see them from miles away, red against white, steady against the wind. The towers stand like frozen fires, unshaken by storm or time. Inside, the halls echo with footsteps and the low hum of voices marking the hours. To outsiders, it looks like perfection. To those within, it feels like balance. But a heavy kind of balance, one that leaves no space for change. Still they remain calm. Their discipline is their shield. They eat together, sleep in rows, speak little. Their minds grow used to silence.
Some find peace in it, others find a kind of stillness that never ends.
The winters grow longer. The rivers freeze earlier each year. Sometimes entire months pass without sunlight. The horizon turns white, then grey, then disappears. In those times, the fire becomes everything. They gather close to it, the glow reflected in eyes that no longer fear darkness but have learned to depend on light. The fire softens their faces, smooths the hard lines left by frost. It makes them human again. For a few quiet moments, no one remembers rules or duty.
There is only warmth.
Travelers still come. Hunters, wanderers, messengers, and always they are given shelter. Bread, broth, a seat near the warmth. It is the one rule that never changes. No one is turned away. The world beyond their walls may shift, but hospitality remains like a root beneath snow. Outside, the land slowly fills with other strongholds. Each one mirrors the next. Square, calm, efficient. They connect through paths cut across ice, through signals of smoke and fire. At night, a traveler can see one beacon fade and another rise farther down the road, a chain of light stretching from the Baltic to the edge of the forests. The brothers write down what they have built. They measure distances, track the passing of seasons, record the number of stones used in each tower. They create maps not only of land, but of habit, lines that show how the world should stay.
What began as survival has become symmetry.
But where there is order, there is also the shadow of control. What began as protection becomes authority. Taxes appear, rules harden. Those who once came seeking warmth now bow their heads before stone gates. The brothers tell themselves it is for safety, and perhaps it is, but safety has a cost. Every rule builds another wall. Every wall makes the world smaller.
Yet inside those walls a strange peace holds.
No chaos, no hunger, no fear of the night.
Only routine, predictable and slow.
The children who grow up here think the sound of bells is the sound of time itself. They never question it. In summer, when the snow melts for a few brief weeks, the land turns green.
Rivers break their ice and run fast again.
Birds return. The people step out from the fortresses and breathe the warm air, like it is a forgotten dream. But even then, the rhythm remains. The bells still ring. The gates still close at dusk. The pattern holds. When autumn comes, they begin again, stacking wood, filling stores, tightening doors. It is not fear that drives them now, but habit. Habit as strong as stone. Inside the fortress, the air grows thick with smoke and comfort. The fire hums like an old friend. The brothers sit side by side, faces turned toward the glow. Their silence is no longer empty. It has become its own kind of prayer. Not to gods, but to endurance. Sometimes, on quiet nights, one of them walks to the wall and looks out. Snow falls endlessly, soft and white. He watches it land on his glove, then melt, then vanish. He thinks of the world beyond, the forests, the wild rivers, the voices of people who live without walls.
For a moment, he wonders what freedom feels like.
But the thought fades. He turns back to the fire where his place is kept. The fortress hums with the low sound of routine. Boots on stone, wind in chimneys, the soft clatter of wooden bowls. Life continues like this for generations. Names change, faces age and disappear.
But the rhythm stays the same.
The flame burns on. And so the world of the north becomes one of patience, a world built of stone, snow, and order. It forgets the wildness that once created it. But beneath the stillness, The same old truth endures. Human hands still pass the wood, human eyes still watch the flame, and somewhere in the quiet between breaths, the memory of warmth still lives. The Northern Crusade, Stone, Snow, and Order, continuation. The brothers record everything: numbers, names, weather, harvests, the rising and setting of moons. The pages fill with careful marks, each stroke steady, each sentence quiet. They do not write stories, only facts. But the facts themselves begin to form a story, one of patience, endurance, and the slow tightening of order around life. Each winter adds another layer of pages. Ink freezes before it dries. Hands tremble in the cold, yet the writing continues. The pages rustle softly like snow across a roof. Through these records they build a memory stronger than stone, a memory of consistency. Some evenings a few of them walk beyond the walls. They stand in the snow, faces lifted to the stars. The sky above the north is clear and deep, scattered with cold light. They remember what the wind used to sound like before walls, before duty, before endless routines. It feels distant now, like another lifetime. Still, the memory warms them. It reminds them why the walls were built, not for power, but for peace. When they return, their boots leave dark trails on the white path. The gates close behind them with the same slow rhythm as always. Inside, torches flicker against stone. The warmth greets them like an old companion. No one speaks of what they felt outside. The silence of the fortress absorbs it, turns it into calm. Time moves differently here. Seasons blend. One winter seems to slide into another without end. Children are born, grow old, and take the same vows as their parents. Generations pass like pages turned by the same careful hand. The brothers grow older, but the fortress never changes. Its stones darken, its halls deepen. Sometimes, when the wind rushes through the corridors, it sounds almost like breathing. They joke quietly that the building itself has learned to live. Traders come often now. Their sleds creak under the weight of grain, fur, and salt. They bow before entering, not from fear, but from habit. They know this place keeps the roads clear and the borders safe. Travelers rest under its roofs. Messengers warm their hands at its fires, and kings far away begin to notice. Slowly, the quiet brotherhood of the North becomes something larger, an institution. They are asked to build roads, to guard borders, to maintain calm where confusion once ruled.
And they agree because that is what they know best, keeping things steady.
Their discipline spreads like frost, invisible, unstoppable, binding everything it touches. Their maps stretch wider. Their symbols mark the land, lines of trade follow their paths, villages grow near their towers, drawn to their security. The fire that once warmed a handful of wanderers now burns inside 1,000 halls.
Yet in every tower the same rule remains: one keeper, one flame, one night at a time.
The world outside may change, but their rhythm does not. It has become the pulse of the North itself. When spring finally comes, short, shy, and quiet, flowers appear along the walls. They bloom between cracks in the stone, small signs of softness that no one planted. Some brothers stop to look at them in passing. They do not pick them. They simply nod, as if the flowers, too, understand patience.
The years move like drifting snow.
Every sound inside the fortress becomes part of a single breath.
The ring of a hammer, the scrape of quills, the distant cry of birds returning to thawed fields.
To live here is to live within repetition, to find comfort in sameness. Once a year, during the longest night, they gather in the great hall. No speeches are given, no words are needed. They sit around a single flame, the first and oldest, passed from one fortress to another for generations. The flame flickers softly, reflected in their eyes. For a moment, all are silent, listening to the faint hiss of wood. It sounds almost like a heartbeat. Beyond the walls, the wind moves again through the forests. It hums through cracks in the stone, whispering to the flames inside. It carries the scent of pine, of frozen rivers, of time itself. And somewhere, beneath all the layers of discipline and duty, the old human rhythm still beats. The rhythm of keeping, of waiting, of believing that warmth is worth protecting. The world believes them powerful. They see themselves only as watchmen, servants of calm in a restless age. They do not know that history will call them conquerors. For now, they are simply men in the snow, guarding fires that will one day light empires. As centuries turn, their order becomes legend. Songs are written, though the brothers never sing them. Travelers tell stories of the silent halls where peace never sleeps. Kings send envoys seeking the wisdom of men who measure time not by battles, but by winters survived. Inside the walls, the brothers continue their rhythm. They still write, still polish stone, still keep the fire. They hear echoes of their name carried by merchants and rulers, but it changes nothing. The snow falls, the bells ring, the pages fill. That is enough. Sometimes, when the night is especially clear, a watcher looks through the arrow slit and sees the stars reflected on the frozen river below. He feels something vast beyond his understanding. The weight of centuries, the patience of stone, the quiet persistence of life. He knows that long after his watch ends, the flame will still be burning, guarded by hands not yet born. This thought comforts him. And so the story of the North becomes the story of endurance itself. Stone holds its shape. Snow returns each year. The fire remains. The world changes, but the rhythm does not. Men come and go, kings rise and fade, empires breathe and sleep. Yet here, among the endless frost, a few still keep watch, listening to the wind, tending to the flame, protecting the one thing that has never failed humanity: warmth shared in the dark. The fall of pride, when stone meets shadow. The world does not fall in a single moment. It loosens quietly, like frost melting from a branch. Change arrives slowly, in the small places where no one looks. In the far north, the brothers still keep their rhythm. Their walls stand firm. Their towers shine red and pale beneath a sky that no longer frightens them. From a distance, the fortress looks eternal. Up close, it whispers of fatigue. The same stones that once felt strong now show fine cracks. Water seeps in, freezing and thawing, widening each season's mark. The air smells of dust, not new mortar. The bells still ring, but their tone has changed. Deeper, slower, carrying the echo of age. Inside, the brothers walk the same paths they have always walked. Boots trace grooves into the floor. Hands smooth the handles of doors until the grain disappears. Everything is polished by time until nothing feels new. They keep their records as always, names, dates, weather, but the pages are thinner now, the writing more tired. Sometimes a name is copied twice by mistake or forgotten entirely. No one corrects it. No one notices. Perfection has softened into habit. The fire burns every night. Its glow fills the hall with steady warmth. But the faces around it have changed. Some eyes drift while others stare into the flame, not with devotion, but with emptiness. The calm that once brought peace now feels heavy, endless. When the younger ones arrive from distant villages, they carry questions. Why do we do this?
Why do we wake so early, sleep so little, build walls when the storms are fewer each year?
The elders answer with silence. The answers were once written in duty, but the ink has faded. The newcomers learn quickly that not the meaning but the routine. They copy the gestures, repeat the phrases, follow the hours. It is easier to continue than to change. In that ease, the first cracks of pride appear. They begin to speak quietly of how others depend on them, how the world beyond the walls cannot stand without their guidance, how kings send gifts, merchants pay tribute, travelers bow. They tell themselves it is gratitude. But gratitude, repeated too often, begins to sound like praise. Pride does not arrive as arrogance, it arrives as certainty. The quiet belief that nothing could exist without them, that their calm is the center of the world. When snow covers the roads, they send no messengers. When villages request aid, they reply that order must be maintained. They still speak gently, but their gentleness has become distance. The warmth they once gave freely is now measured, counted, controlled. Outside, life continues. Villages grow into towns.
Towns send their own guards, their own builders, their own teachers. The world begins to move faster, while the fortress stands still.
Change flows around it like a river around stone. The water smooths its edges slowly, patiently. Inside, the brothers feel the stillness deepen. It no longer feels like peace. It feels like waiting, though for what they do not know. The old songs are gone. Even the hum of work has quieted. Only the wind remains, whispering through the cracks, carrying voices of things forgotten. In the evenings, when the fire burns low, the oldest of them sits by the door and listens. He remembers the early days, when the world was wilder, when building the walls meant safety, when every flame felt like a miracle. Now he sees young faces staring at the same flame with dull eyes. He wonders if peace, when held too tightly, begins to turn into stillness, and stillness into sleep. Sometimes he dreams that the fire goes out. In the dream, no one moves. They sit in the dark, calm as ever, waiting for someone to notice. But no one does. He wakes before the dream ends. The walls, once symbols of protection, have become mirrors of confinement.
They keep danger away, but they also keep life from entering.
The brothers no longer hear laughter in the courtyards, no music, no stories, only the sound of routine. Order has turned inward, circling itself like smoke trapped under glass. When spring arrives again, the snow melts more slowly than before. The rivers swell, flooding the lower gates. It has happened many times, yet this year no one repairs them. The flood recedes, leaving stains that no one cleans. The fortress remains, but the care has faded. They still keep the fire, but not the spark. Outside, travelers notice. They whisper that the brothers of the north have grown old, that their halls no longer glow as bright, that their words carry less weight. The world that once looked to them now looks past them. Still within their walls, they believe they stand unchanged. They mistake endurance for immortality. One night, a young keeper forgets to tend the fire. He falls asleep by the hearth, the embers dimming beside him. By morning, only a faint red pulse remains under the ash. The elder sees it and says nothing. He simply kneels, breathes gently, and the ember stirs again. The others gather in silence. No one scolds, no one speaks, but a thought passes through them like wind. If even one night's flame can fade, perhaps all things can. From that moment, something invisible begins to change. They still work, still eat, still record, but the air feels thinner. The fortress seems to breathe slower. The bells sound more distant. They tell themselves that the rhythm continues. And it does, but only because no one knows how to stop it. The pride that once gave them purpose now binds them. They cannot leave, cannot pause, cannot question. They are prisoners of their own perfection. The same stillness that once protected them now weighs like stone on their chests. Yet even in this quiet decline, beauty remains. When the morning sun strikes the walls, the red bricks glow as if alive. When snow falls, it softens every floor, covering cracks with silence. From afar, the fortress still looks eternal. Only up close does one see the small signs of time. The moss creeping upward, the worn steps, the fading carvings above the gates. Travelers still come, though fewer each year. They find food, warmth, and rest. They leave coins, thanks, and sometimes tears. The brothers accept these gifts with gentle nods, unaware that they are now relics in motion, living reminders of what endurance once meant. At dusk, the wind returns. It slips through the narrow corridors, carrying the sound of faraway rivers and forgotten songs. It touches each candle, each curtain, each tired face. It reminds the fortress of the world beyond. A world still moving, still changing, still alive. A few of the younger ones listen closely to that wind. Something in it stirs them. They dream of walking beyond the gates, of seeing forests without paths, skies without walls. They do not speak it aloud, but the thought grows quietly inside them like spring beneath ice. The elders feel it too, though they do not admit it. They sense that time is folding around them, that the stillness they built is no longer safety, but distance. And yet they stay, because to leave would mean admitting the end of everything they believed eternal. The fall does not come with sound or fire. It comes as a sigh, a slow release of centuries of order. A few will leave, a few will remain. The towers will fade into the mist, their names into dust. But somewhere deep inside the cold earth, the memory will rest. And perhaps on some far future night, a traveler will find a single stone, warm from the day's sun, and wonder who once placed it there. He will sit beside it, light a small fire, and feel the same calm that began it all. The story will continue, quieter now, smaller, but alive. Because nothing built from care ever truly vanishes. It only changes shape, waiting to be remembered by another set of hands. And so when stone meets shadow and pride turns back into silence, the rhythm of humanity returns to where it began, to warmth, to patience, to the soft breath of fire in the dark. From sword to scroll, the quiet turning. The years fold gently, one into another. Snow falls where banners once hung. The wind, patient and endless, moves through the empty corridors of the fortress. It hums against the old gates, soft as breath through a hollow reed. The sound is neither mourning nor joy, only time passing. The brotherhood has thinned. Where once 100 voices filled the halls, now only a few remain. Their footsteps echo against stone that remembers more than any man alive.
The youngest among them cannot recall the world before the walls.
And the oldest no longer speak of it. Outside, kingdoms rise and fade like mirages of warmth across frozen plains. Roads spread wider. Towns build their own defenses. The Order's symbols, carved on maps centuries ago, are now half-forgotten marks beneath newer names. But the fortress still stands, its towers bowed yet unbroken, its fires small but alive. One morning, the brothers gather in the great hall, fewer than 30 now. Their robes are patched, their hands lined, their eyes calm but weary. The eldest stands before them, his voice thin yet steady. He speaks of change, not as loss, but as rhythm. The sword grows heavy, he says. The world no longer asks for it.
But there are other fires to keep, the ones that burn in the mind. No one answers.
The wind outside fills the silence for them. That evening, they lower their weapons into the earth. No ceremony, no witness, just hands and soil. Steel meets dirt, and the sound is dull, final, almost kind.
They cover the blades with ash and snow, marking the place with nothing.
It is not surrender. It is release. In the days that follow, they clear a room once used for armor. They bring in tables, ink, paper, and light. The fire in the corner burns low, steady, unjudging. Where shields once hung, shelves begin to rise. They fill them with maps, ledgers, and fragments of learning gathered from travelers. Plants that heal frostbite, paths through mountain passes, stories told in trade routes. The brothers begin to write again, and not just records, but reflections. What once was counted, the weight of harvests, the height of towers, now becomes described, explained, understood. The ink runs slower, the sentences longer. Their hands, once used to grasp iron, now move gently across paper. At first, the writing feels foreign. They are men trained in silence, not speech. But the rhythm of the pen soon replaces the rhythm of drills. Each word steadies the mind. Each line is another wall rebuilt inside thought instead of stone. The fortress grows quieter still. The sound of hammers fades. Only the scratching of quills remains, a soft and endless whisper that seems to echo across the centuries. Outside, travelers notice light in the windows again. They come not for protection now, but for knowledge. They bring questions about stars, about trade winds, about the ways of growing grain in hard soil. And the brothers answer. Slowly, carefully, with the calm precision of men who have learned to think before they act.
The Order begins to change shape.
No longer soldiers, not quite scholars, something in between, keepers of rhythm. They study what survives, what repeats, what connects. They realize that knowledge, like fire, must be shared or it dies. One night, as snow drifts past the high windows, the youngest of them asks, "Will the world remember us?" The elder beside him smiles faintly. "It doesn't need to," he says. "It only needs to remember what we kept." Outside, the wind carries their laughter. Small, brief, genuine. The kind that belongs to men who have finally put down their burdens. Years pass again. Visitors grow more frequent. Merchants rest their caravans by the walls. Scholars trade notes and leave with pages of copied wisdom. The fortress becomes a crossing point, not of armies, but of ideas. A slow and graceful transformation from defense to learning, where once they guarded walls of stone, and now they guard fragile sheets of parchment.
Where once their fire warmed the cold away,
now it warms ink and wax. Their duty has changed, but their essence has not. To keep what is fragile alive, they begin to teach children from nearby villages. Numbers first, then letters. They show them how to read the sky for weather, how to listen for the sound of thaw beneath ice. The laughter of children fills the courtyard, echoing off the same walls that once heard drills and commands. It feels like the sound of spring. Some of the elders stand in doorways, watching, their eyes bright with something they cannot name. Hope, perhaps, or memory. At night, when the fortress grows still, they gather by the small fire in the library. Shelves rise like forests around them, filled with scrolls and notes. They speak softly about how everything they built was never meant to last. And yet, somehow, it has. Not as walls, but as words. The same rhythm continues. Keeping, tending, remembering. Only now the fire burns within thought instead of stone. Outside, the wind moves through the trees. The old melody returns, the voice of the earth whispering to those who have finally learned to listen. From sword to scroll, the echo of learning. Decades pass. The fortress has changed again. Vines creep up its outer walls. The stones, once harsh and bright, have turned the color of dusk. Inside, the fires are smaller now, but constant. They no longer fight the cold. They accompany it, like two old friends sitting side by side in quiet conversation. The brothers, or what remains of them, have become teachers, healers, scribes. Their hands, once strong and scarred, now bear the stains of ink. Their tools are brushes, compasses, and memory. The sound of pages turning replaces the sound of armor. Where once swords hung, now hang lanterns made of glass. The air in the halls feels alive. It hums with quiet work. The mixing of pigment, the binding of pages, the whisper of voices reading aloud to one another. Knowledge fills the rooms like smoke once did. It clings to everything, soft, invisible, endless. Travelers bring books from distant cities. The brothers copy them by hand, line by line, letter by letter. They preserve stories of seas and stars, of creatures long extinct, of languages no one nearby can still speak. Each page saved feels like a victory, a small defiance against forgetting. They begin to call themselves keepers rather than knights. The title suits them better.
they keep not walls but understanding.
They keep not weapons but words. Children who once came to learn now bring their own children. Generations overlap like pages bound together. Each new voice adds a verse to the long song of memory. In summer, they open the gates to anyone who seeks quiet. Artists sit in the courtyards, sketching old towers. Travelers sleep beneath the shade of arches. Scholars work in silence, their thoughts rising like dust in beams of light. The fortress, once a symbol of control, has become a refuge for thought. And yet, the brothers do not see themselves as scholars. They are still servants of rhythm, of keeping the world from slipping too quickly. They know that knowledge, like fire, can grow wild if untended. Their calm is their boundary. Their patience, their discipline. One winter evening, snow returns heavy and slow. The sky darkens early, the world feels hushed. Inside, a small group gathers near the fire. They speak of the past, of what it means to endure. An elder says, perhaps the true task was never to guard or to rule. Perhaps it was only to remember. No one disagrees. The snow presses against the windows and the flames reflect in their eyes. Small lights against the long dark. As the years stretch forward, the fortress becomes legend once more. Travelers tell of a place in the far north where time moves slower and words never freeze. Where men once carried swords, but now carry pens, and the silence of their halls feels like the pause between heartbeats. No one remembers their names. Only the rhythm remains, the rhythm of keeping.
The rhythm of warmth.
The rhythm of waiting for dawn. Inside the highest tower, a single lamp burns all night. It guards the archive, shelves upon shelves of stories, some written by strangers, some by the brothers themselves. There are maps of stars drawn by steady hands, lists of herbs that heal frostbite, notes about the songs of whales in the northern sea. All fragile, all cared for, all alive. Each night before rest, one of them walks through the halls, checking every lamp, every window, every lock. Not out of fear, but out of love, the love of caretaking. He pauses by the great door, places a hand on the cold stone, and whispers a line that has been passed through generations. May the fire stay warm. May the mind stay open. Then he returns to his room, where the snowlight glows faintly against the walls. He lies down, hearing the wind hum through cracks in the tower. It sounds the same as it did centuries ago. A song older than language, older than fear, older than time. Outside, the snow covers the tracks of travelers, softening every sound. Inside, the flame continues, steady and small, and so ends the long turning, from sword to scroll, from strength to understanding, from the rule of hands to the quiet rule of thought. The fortress breathes, the world turns,
and beneath it all the same ancient truth endures,
that warmth once shared never truly fades. The bankers of trust. The hidden order of exchange. Far from the snow and stillness of the north, the world has warmed. The air here smells of salt and spice. Ships move slowly across the horizon, their sails breathing in the wind. Harbors fill with the creak of wood, the clatter of ropes, the murmur of trade.
Gold glints under the sun, but the true weight of value lies elsewhere.
In faith, in promise, in paper.
Here, a new brotherhood begins to rise.
Not men of stone, but men of numbers. They wear plain robes, simple and travel-worn. They live among markets, not fortresses. Their hands are clean, their voices calm. They keep records instead of weapons, and in those records the world begins to change. They are called many names: merchants, scribes, financiers. But among themselves, they are simply keepers of trust. Their task is quiet yet vast, to make sure that what is owed can cross oceans, that faith can travel farther than sight. In their small houses filled with parchment and wax, they measure worth not in weight but in reliability. Each mark of ink becomes a promise, Each name written becomes a bond. They build invisible roads that connect one city to another, roads made not of stone, but of belief. A merchant in one port leaves a letter sealed with a mark. Weeks later, another opens it on the far shore and hands over goods, trusting that mark more than any spoken word. This, the brothers realize, is a new kind of fire. It does not burn wood or coal, but burns through distance, lighting connections between strangers. They call it credit, but what it truly means is confidence, a quiet faith that tomorrow will honor today. Their rooms smell of wax and ink, their tables covered with scrolls and ledgers. In the evenings, when trade slows and the city hum softens, they sit together and read the day's numbers aloud. The rhythm is slow, almost like prayer.
Not of worship, but of balance.
For them, numbers are not symbols of greed. They are instruments of order and notes in a symphony that keeps the world in motion. Where chaos once ruled the seas, their marks bring calm. Where suspicion divided men, their records create trust. They live modestly,
Their homes are narrow, their meals simple,
but their reach is wide.
stretching across lands and waters, connecting kings and sailors,
Peasants and princes through the quiet thread of exchange, and yet, as always, order attracts its shadow. The more the world relies on trust, the more fragile that trust becomes. A rumor can move faster than a ship. A lie can cross borders faster than truth. The brothers know this. They write each account twice and check each seal thrice, and remind themselves that trust, once broken, takes lifetimes to rebuild. Sometimes they gather at night not to work, but to think. They speak softly about how people no longer fear monsters or darkness, but something smaller, quieter: loss, deceit, betrayal. They agree that numbers must serve people, not rule them. They remind each other that the ledgers are only reflections, not the world itself.
Still, the power of paper grows.
Kings borrow from them, voyages depend on them, empires rise and fall on the strength of their ink. They do not seek this power. It finds them. And with it comes unease, and the oldest among them senses a shift. He tells the others, when the world begins to trust only what it can count, it forgets what cannot be measured. His words linger in the room like smoke.
No one answers.
They all understand. In the following years, their work becomes even quieter. They no longer speak of wealth, only of responsibility.
They teach apprentices to write with precision,
To sign their names as if each letter were a heartbeat. They learn that accuracy is a form of care, that the smallest error can ripple through entire lives. In the markets, traders still haggle and shout. Coins still change hands. But in back rooms lit by oil lamps, the real exchanges happen in silence. One mark of trust for another. The brothers keep their records in books bound by plain leather. They never decorate them, never display them.
They say that the moment pride enters the ledger,
Truth leaves it. Their faith is not in wealth, but in reliability. They believe that every promise kept is a brick in the unseen foundation of peace, and that every broken promise is a crack in the wall of the world. At dusk, when the sea turns silver and the wind carries the scent of rain, they close their books and sit by the window. They watch ships vanish beyond the horizon, each one carrying letters sealed with their mark. They do not know the men aboard, but they know the meaning of trust, that it must be sent out again and again if it is to stay alive. Their fires burn late into the night, not bright, not loud, just enough to remind the world that belief, once kindled, is worth protecting. And somewhere between the sound of turning pages and the whisper of waves against stone, the same ancient rhythm continues, the rhythm of care, of patience, of faith in unseen hands.
The brothers do not call themselves guardians of the world,
but perhaps without knowing it,
that is exactly what they have become.
The vanishing treasure, the slow unraveling. The sea has grown restless. Winds change faster now, and ships that once crossed safely begin to disappear into mist. Ports once filled with light now flicker dimly through smoke and rain. The world is shifting again, quietly, beneath the surface of trade and trust. The keepers of exchange, the quiet brothers of paper and seal, feel the change first. Their ledgers still fill with numbers, but the rhythm is uneasy. Too much gold moves too quickly. Too many hands promise more than they can give. Whispers drift through markets that the world has grown richer, and yet no one feels safe. In their houses, the brothers meet in silence. Their tables are the same, their pens the same, but something in the air has changed. The sound of ink scratching on parchment feels heavier, slower, uncertain. Each mark that once meant trust now trembles with doubt.
They have spent generations building a web of belief.
A world held together by promises carried across oceans. But belief, like light, fades when stretched too far. One evening, an elder stands by the window watching ships in the harbor. Their lanterns drift like fireflies on dark water. He says quietly, "We built bridges of air and asked them to hold the weight of the world." No one replies. They all understand.
Rumors spread of treasure lost at sea, of letters never arriving, of marks forged by desperate hands. For the first time, trust begins to fracture. It does not shatter, it simply loosens like a thread coming undone.
The brothers double their efforts. They cross-check every seal, sign every note twice, but trust, once cracked, does not mend easily. Outside, people grow restless. Kings demand more gold. Merchants demand faster ships. Voyagers borrow and borrow again. The pace of trade quickens beyond what any man can follow. The brothers, who once measured the world with patience, now find themselves counting storms. They write through sleepless nights, balancing numbers that no longer obey. And still in every record they try to hold the same quiet care, to remind the world that value is not wealth, but reliability. But the world has stopped listening. In the taverns near the ports, people speak their names with suspicion. "They hold too much," someone says. "They know too much," another adds. In truth, the brothers own little. Their homes are plain, their robes unadorned. But they hold what others fear to hold, the invisible weight of every promise ever made. Then one morning, without warning, a decree arrives from a distant throne. All their houses are to be searched, their ledgers seized, their symbols removed. No reason is given, only that too much power should not rest in unseen hands. The brothers do not protest.
They bow, as they always have, and open their doors.
The officials find nothing, no gold, no hidden treasure, only books filled with names and dates. But they take them anyway. The ledgers are carried away in carts, page by page, the lifeblood of centuries leaving in silence.
The brothers watch without anger.
They stand by the doorway, hands folded, eyes calm. They know that loss, like trust, must sometimes run its course. When the carts disappear into the distance, one of them says, "Perhaps it is right." We were never meant to keep so much of what belongs to everyone. That night, the rooms feel hollow. The tables are bare, the air too still. Only one book remains, a single ledger left behind by mistake. Its pages blank except for the first line, written long ago. To keep is to remember, not to own. They place it on the table and leave it open. The candle beside it flickers until dawn. In the days that follow, the brothers scatter quietly across the land. Some travel inland, some to small towns, some to monasteries by the sea. They take nothing with them but memory, the feel of ink, the weight of paper, the habit of balance.
They do not call themselves brothers anymore.
They are simply men of record, wandering through a world, learning to forget. And yet, though their order dissolves, its rhythm remains. Merchants still mark paper with seals, travelers still carry letters of promise, kings still borrow from men who write instead of fight. The system endures even without its keepers. It no longer remembers who began it, only that it works. In this way, the brothers vanish without vanishing. Their legacy hides inside the daily motion of life, in every coin traded, every note signed, every hand extended in trust. Their names fade, but their rhythm does not. At night, somewhere far from the sea, an old man sits by a small lamp. He writes not ledgers now, but reflections. He writes of the early days, when belief was new and paper still smelled of wet ink. He writes of how fragile the world is, how every age thinks itself eternal, and how time teaches otherwise. When he finishes, he closes the book gently, places his hand over it and whispers, "Let this be enough." Outside, the wind rises. It rattles the shutters, moves across the fields, and carries with it the last breath of an order that once held the world together. But the world does not end. It only turns again quietly, as all things do when their season has passed. The vanishing treasure and the echo of memory. Years pass. The cities change shape. Stone gives way to glass. Roads multiply like veins across the earth. People move faster now, trade grows louder. The age of quiet exchange has ended, and in its place rises the age of noise. Yet somewhere deep in the foundation of this new world, the old rhythm still pulses. Soft, hidden, steady. Every bank, every contract, every measured transaction is built on an idea older than any city, that people can believe in one another across distance. They no longer speak of the brothers who began it, but their influence lingers in the very act of signing a name. Historians will later search for them, for evidence of their lives, their symbols, their treasure.
They will find little.
A few letters, a few pages, a few strange markings on documents so faded. They crumble when touched.
Some will call them myth.
Others, invention. But somewhere in a quiet archive untouched by fire or progress, a small chest still rests in shadow. Inside it, a handful of coins, a seal made of bronze, and a folded sheet of parchment yellowed by centuries. On that sheet, in the handwriting of the first keeper, is a single line. The treasure is not what we hold, but what we keep alive in others.
The words are simple, but the meaning glows like a hidden ember.
For the brothers never sought to own, only to preserve, to ensure that belief, once kindled, would not be lost to time. Outside the archive, the world roars with progress. Engines echo where wind once moved sails. Lights burn through nights once ruled by stars. People build towers higher than mountains, bridges longer than rivers.
And yet, for all their speed, they still trust the unseen.
a signature, a code, a number on a screen.
The old rhythm lives inside the new.
Sometimes when the world slows for a moment, a power outage, a storm, a silence, someone feels it. The weight of an invisible connection, the calm certainty that trust is older than wealth. And in that pause, the brothers return, not in form, not in name, but in spirit. Their legacy is the quiet belief that the world holds together. Not by force, but by faith in simple things, a promise, a word, a flame shared in darkness. In the far north, where snow still falls as it did long ago, the last of their fortresses stands in ruin. Its towers are broken, its halls empty except for birds and wind. But when night comes and the sky clears, a traveller might still see a faint glow from within. Not fire, not lamp, but moonlight caught on stone, shining like memory itself. The traveller will step inside the old gate and feel the air change. Cool, still, heavy with history. He will find no gold, no jewels, no ledgers. Only dust and the faint outline of shelves once filled with knowledge. In the center of the hall, a single candle sits upon a cracked table. It has long since burned down to wax and wick, yet when wind moves through the room, the air seems to shimmer as if the flame remembers itself. The traveller will stand there for a while, listening to the silence and realize that this too is a kind of treasure. Not wealth, but the presence of what once mattered. He will walk back into the snow, carrying no artifact,
Only a feeling.
the calm weight of continuity. The understanding that nothing truly ends, only transforms. As he disappears into the distance, the wind fills the empty fortress with sound again. It echoes through the halls like breath returning to lungs. And in that echo, the brothers live once more, not as men, but as memory, as rhythm, as the unseen heartbeat of trust itself. The treasure was never gold, it was never paper, nor seal, nor number. It was the act of believing, repeated across generations until it became invisible. That invisible fire still burns. In every promise kept, in every exchange made in good faith, in every quiet moment when one human chooses to trust another. And so the great order ends, not in ruin, but in peace. Its walls crumble, its ledgers fade, but its purpose survives. Woven into the ordinary fabric of life, the world moves forward, carrying its lessons like embers hidden beneath ash. And when darkness comes again, as it always does,
Someone will find those embers
and light them once more. Because warmth, once shared, is never lost. The quiet echo of faith, the last light of the world. Night settles again.
soft, unhurried, complete.
The noise of the day fades like mist over a sleeping river. What remains is breath, calm, steady, ancient. Across the turning earth, lights flicker. Some in cities, some in fields, some in rooms where a single person keeps watch. Each one, no matter how small, carries the same purpose: to hold back the dark for just a little while. The world has changed beyond recognition. Stone has become glass. Paper has become light. Voices travel through air and wire faster than thought, and yet, beneath all the movement, the same pulse endures: the human wish to keep warmth alive. Long ago, someone built a fire in a cave.
Another carved stone to make shelter.
Another pressed ink into parchment to remember. Another marked a promise so the world could trade without fear. All of them, unknowingly, were doing the same thing, keeping the flame from going out. The wind moves softly through time. It touches every age, carrying the scent of smoke, of parchment, of sea salt, of paper. It hums through ruins and through towers, through markets and through quiet rooms. Everywhere it passes, something small still glows.
Now, in this late hour, the earth turns beneath a calm sky.
A few fires still burn, in villages, in lighthouses, in hearts. They do not shout, they simply endure. A traveler walks a lonely road. Snow dusts his coat. In his hand, a small lamp swings. The flame wavers, but never dies. He does not know the story of the ones who came before him, the builders, the recorders, the keepers of trust. But the warmth he carries is theirs. Every step he takes is part of their rhythm. He passes a field, a river, a sleeping town.
He feels the wind change and pulls his cloak closer.
The lamp flickers against his face, gold against the grey of night. And for a moment, he understands that all light, however small, belongs to everyone who ever tried to make the world gentler. Far away, in the ruins of an old fortress, moonlight slips through broken windows. It falls across stone where fire once burned. The air hums softly, as if remembering voices. No words, just breath. The echo of faith itself. Morning begins quietly. The horizon lightens, slow and patient. The first birds call from unseen trees. The wind softens into calm, and the lamp in the traveller's hand glows pale against the rising sun. He watches as its flame fades into daylight, not lost, only joined to something larger. Every ending is a return. The light that leaves one place arrives in another. The warmth passed through hands, through stories, through time, never disappears. It changes form, waits, and begins again. The world, for all its storms and silence, is a single chain of caretakers, each one tending a spark. They did not start, each one trusting that someone else will keep it after them. So, as night folds once more across the earth, remember this. You are part of that rhythm. The same light that warmed the cave,
that glowed in the fortress,
that shimmered on the page, now rests in your hands. Let it burn quietly. Let it guide you home.
And when your own night comes,
pass it on, gently, faithfully,
into the waiting dark.
Because the last light of the world is never truly the last. It is only the next beginning.